Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're at Meeker High School in the Ag Shop, and today we're going to talk about the arts and the beauties of oxy welding. A lot of people think that oxy welding is very simple because you just start a torch and you go for it, and you watch these metals fuse or pretty much interconnect with one another, but that's really not the case. And today I'm going to show you how it's actually not as easy as it seems and how it can be a beautiful art of welding. Okay, so to start things off, I'm going to show you the proper way of setting up your oxygen and your acetylene tanks so you don't cause a fuse or a type of leak that can blow up this gosh dang shop. So to start off with things, you're going to start with your acetylene tank, and you don't want to open this valve completely. You just want to do a quarter turn. See how it changed up and it went straight up to 10? That's where you want it. Now, after you're done doing that, you grab this gauge and you start moving it up until you get a little past, a little bit more, a little past 9 PSI right at 10. Then you come up to your oxygen tank. With this one, it doesn't matter how much you open the gauge because that's what my ag shop teacher told me. But you open it and then you move your gauge until it reaches 40. Right about there. That's pretty good. When those two are set up, you want to check that both your valves here on your gun, they're not open so nothing's leaking out. And you also want to come up close and listen and see if there's no leaks in these tanks where there usually can be. And if there is, it can be very dangerous because any sparks that fly, they can catch, and that would not be a good deal. So yeah, now that these are set up, we're gonna move on to welding. All right, now that our tanks are all set up, first of all, you wanna make sure you have the proper PPE to start the job. That means nothing that can catch flames. I don't got the best footwear right on, but you do want something that can cover your underclothes because this can catch up in flames and you don't want that with any of the sparks that fly or whatever. You want some proper gloves because the work does get pretty hot. And yeah, your hood, obviously, because it can get very bright and it can damage your eyes. So after you have all the proper PPE on, we'll start by starting our little gun here. You want to be very careful, and the first thing that you want to turn on is the fuel. So usually I just crack it until I hear that little whistle. You guys can't probably hear it. I grab my starter here, throw some sparks. Jesus. Hold up. So this took way too gosh dang long, but I finally got my flame. It's a bit hot, but I'm going to show you how to start it up. Right now, you see all those black flurries starting. Usually you want your flame to a point where all those black flurries usually disappear. When you got that going for you, you start adjusting your flame and your oxygen until you have a sharp point like so. To me, that's a pretty sharp and efficient flame that I know is going to make a pretty dang good puddle. When you have your puddle set up, the next step is to set it up to a position where you feel comfortable to weld. When you're ready to weld, you put your hood down, and it's time for the game to start. Now, when you're on top of the metal, you want to make sure those two pieces of metal fuse. By fusing, I mean making a puddle. When that puddle starts, just hover over the puddle and drag it, and you'll see that those two pieces of metal are starting to fuse and connect. While you're hovering over it, it's fine if you lose it. You can come back and reunite it. but just make sure to go slow at a pace where you know it's actually fusing with both metals, because if not, you're going to have to go back and restart, which is not a good deal. Good. Now that we are done, we shut down our gun and we check it out, and I'm going to show you the rights and wrongs of this weld, because to be honest with you, I did start off a little too hot and a little too close, and the metals welded or fused together to a point where it just turned into a weak puddle. But as soon as I was moving towards the end, you can see where I actually started to do the right thing, and it actually fused correctly. So we'll move on to that situation today. Okay, now that we got fusion done, it turned out pretty all right. It's a pretty good example of what to do and what not to do, or what happens when you do it wrong and what happens when you actually lay down a pretty nice bead. That separation point is actually on point. But now we're going to talk about another way of using oxy welding to your advantage, which is brazing. Brazing is when you grab a steel or copper rod and you pretty much dump this rod or dip it into the puddle that you've made with the two melted metals. So, like we did with fusion, we start it, check out our flame. We get a pretty good flame going. You get this in a comfortable spot where you can use it, because this actually gets pretty tiring. You get your rod, you move everything else out of the way, and you start to weld. Now, you start out by floating on top of it, on top of your metal, until you get a pretty nice puddle. Okay, now that you have a puddle, you want to dip it and drag it.
Alright guys, thank you for tuning in. This was another video about oxy welding. Hope you guys enjoyed, and if you guys have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Thanks.